And it's going to be green light racing here at Monza. Here goes Noah. We're going to try and go wheel to wheel with the leader, Vic, once again. Back on the top step. We did say take it easy. Oh my goodness. Sinead's going to go for it here into 14, 15. Side by side. Is it going to be Mercedes or is it going to be a BMW?
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another round of racing here at Phoenix SimSport. And boy, do we have a season ahead of us, with Season 11 looming only a few minutes now until the qualifying session. Drivers already on track for their free practice. We will cut over to that very shortly here, but I just wanted to go over what we can expect for this season. Season 11, we're starting here at Misano, a wonderful, wonderful track full of high-speed corners, lots of straightaways, and plenty of overtaking opportunities. Turn 1 here is going to be quite a hectic ride for these drivers, with 31 drivers on the grid and quite a fair amount of diversity in the types of cars that we're going to see. Of course, we are racing the GT3 class with no other classes on track. So you'll see Ferraris, McLarens, Fords, BMWs, all sorts of cars on track. Second race of the season will bring us to Imola for our first wet race of the season. Our third will bring us all the way to Zolder, a very slow track with lots of bumps, favoring cars with good suspension and drivers with lots of commitment. Watkins Glen will be our fourth race of the season, marking our pathway to the half-season race, or half-season weekend, I suppose. No special event for half of the season. 60 minutes of racing there at Watkins Glen, and drivers are getting ready to start for qualifying. So we will cut over to the race. You can see the rest of the tracks will be moving to Suzuka, Hungaroring, Spa, and then a final 2-hour race at Red Bull Ring. But let's get to the race. Here on board with the 49, I think the best representation of a Phoenix SimSport livery. Lots of cars on track today. As I said, 31 drivers for this qualifying session. That is no small number to scoff at. As drivers leave the pit lane, Misano, very long pit lane, so lots of cruising for drivers to do. And we'll go on board with the first driver to get out of the pits. First driver on the draw is, of course, Rivera in that Ferrari. Noobs Are Us Racing Ferrari. A very American-looking livery, I must say, with the red, white, and blue as they go down the main straight for the first of many times today. Of course, 1 hour of racing looms ahead of these drivers, as we did go over in the calendar section. 1 hour of racing is quite a long time. There is a mandatory pit stop within that time where drivers will need to come into the pits, at least add a liter of fuel that'll set their time to 25 seconds. So, regardless of what they do, they will spend 25 minutes in the pit lane. That adds some, or 25 seconds, sorry, in the pit lane, not 25 minutes. My goodness, that would be a lot of time. But down the pit straight, Rivera goes, crossing the line, first of the drivers to get their lap in, if they can manage it. Turn 1 just a little bit wide of the apex, turn 2 just a little bit wide. You can use a lot of these curbs here at Misano. They are quite generous. As you can see, that Ferrari getting very, very sideways. A little bit of a skip there for the mid-engined car. The chicane here, very, very tricky to get right, but getting it right is oh so satisfying. And a good exit from the Ferrari? No, not quite. A lot of slip on the exit of that corner is going to have them with quite a bit of trouble getting that traction. Track conditions are not ideal just yet. We're waiting for the track to improve, and it will improve as the session goes on. This hairpin right here, very critical corner to get right. Drivers not getting this right will suffer in the long run, as they'll lose time and speed down the straightaway, and that time and speed will count for a lot when you're accounting for other drivers on the road. You're not always going to get the best exit, and not having the best exit means that the driver behind is going to have a better exit. Of course, that corner that we just went through, you do have to really throw the car in, and then the hairpin at the end of the straightaway is your best overtaking opportunity if you get a good run down that straight. Of course, not the easiest thing to do, especially if the driver in front messes up that little corner, that little kink on the straightaway, as that can send them just a little bit slower, hold you up if you were going to get a good run. And the first lap from Rivera is going to be a 1:35.7, immediately bested by Sarabin in that bluey Ferrari, and immediately bested by the Ford of Renato? Rufo. We're going to say Rufo. I don't know how to pronounce your first name. You will have to let me know after the stream. That is the best lap on the grid so far, a 34.7. UZB goes P3 with a 35.095. We'll see these lap times improve as the session improves. UZB, of course, is our previous time champion, as is Nico. Any driver on the left with their name in, or with the number in white, is a driver who has won a previous championship here, so only two... No, I don't think it's working right then. Because I believe Shanae is supposed to be on the track. Shanae is on the track, his number is in white. Okay, it is working properly. He has not set a lap yet, though, so he is at the latter half of the grid, and now he sets himself at the front of the grid in P2 with a 34.812. Good lap times from the drivers. Big improvement for the top three right now. Sarabin improving by 0.4, Ruffo improving by 3. Ferlinski was improving, but now he will not improve. Returns to the pit lane. Rufo will take back P1 as it was just snatched away from him with a wonderful lap time at 34.2. We will see a 33 before this session is up, and we might see one before we even improve in conditions, as Nico sets himself into P1 with a 34.1. A beautiful lap time from the Ferrari driver, making his way into that top spot. Not over yet for the other drivers, though. Lots of improvement up and down the grid. I think just about every driver on the grid, excluding maybe I see 4 drivers not improving, and I see another 20 improving. So this is going to be a very competitive session here today. 5 minutes have passed, and we have non-stop action. Nico currently holding P1, Rufo in P2, with Kerlin in P4. Kerlin on improvement right now, so is Yuzubi just behind them. Kerlin could put himself up into P1 here if he drives this well. Up 3.5 of a second as he goes down into the hairpin. Mighty heavy braking from the Audi is going to gain him another 10th, lose him 0.5 on exit, 0.4 up on his lap. He needs 0.5 to go P1. It's not going to be enough just yet unless he really nails this final corner, and it's a good final launch from the Audi driver. It's not going to improve to P1, but it might be P2 if he gets a really good run down the straight, and it's going to be just shy of P2 by 0.06 of a second separating them. Total gap between the top three right now is only 0.2 of a second. 0.2 of a second is hardly any time at all. You can't even count. You can't even talk in 0.2 of a second. So, blink of an eye separating the drivers right now, and that's what it's going to stay for the time being as the Audi returns to the garage. Rufo is improving on his lap, so he may be able to snatch away P1. He'll improve by 0.007 right now if he is able to hold on to this pace. He needs 0.16 to gain. He was 0.167 up. Now he's 0.25, running very wide of the corner, losing just a little bit of time, but he's still on a valid lap here. Down into the hairpin, onto the straightaway. He needs a good exit that forward, very, very quick in a straight line, and he'll benefit a little bit from the slipstream in the car in front. Nico in front is also on improvement, so he's not going to be completely safe here, even if he does get P1. That Ferrari behind, that red Ferrari, is Nico, so they're going to be fighting on the exact same track conditions. This improvement's going to be very, very close as Rufo crosses the line. It's 0.5 up for Rufo right now, but now it's going to be 0.3. Nico up 0.3, so Nico is improving right now enough to stay in P1. Very, very close between the drivers as Rufo rounds the final corner all the way to the exit of the track. It's an invalidated lap from him, so Nico will improve and stay in P1 just barely. And now that gap has opened up. Rufo has to gain 0.6 in order to take away P1, but track conditions are rapidly improving, and drivers will start to dramatically improve their laps. That is our first 33 of the day, a 33.672 from Nico, and that's the best lap we have seen here yet. As the Ford slows down, gives up his lap as he is not on a valid hot lap any longer. Kurlin in the pits right now, Nico in the pits right now, so Sarabin is the next driver on improvement in P4, potentially able to take away that podium position from Kurlin. No improvement just yet, though, for the Ferrari. An improvement from the Porsche behind, with the Big Dig Porsche representing Phoenix SimSport on that rear bumper. And Ferlinski, of course, a previous champion here in Phoenix SimSport. He has won 2 championships, I do believe, if I'm remembering off the top of my head. I know I've personally fought with him many times on track. He was one of my championship rivals, as was Usby. And the two of them are neck and neck right now. And, well, they certainly have a history of fighting. I don't know about a history of fighting at Misano, though. I hardly see these two go at it at Misano, so it'll be very interesting to see who comes out on top. Usby, of course, has more experience here, I think, just given the recent amount of driving time he spent at this track. Ferlinski, very, very quick in the car, very, very quick off the bat. Usby, of course, takes a little bit of time to warm up, so these two will certainly have a good duel this race. Ferlinski improving that right now, though, may put himself up into P3, maybe even P2 if he continues on this pace. We'll see as he rounds that final few corners, and no, it's not going to be improvement. He's going to lose the lap, slowing down to set himself up for a nice exit. Apologies. It's early morning for me. Always going to be a little bit of a tired stream this early in the morning. Of course, I am on the West Coast, so couldn't be any earlier for me. Akavala Conti, I think that's how you pronounce that name, on improvement right now. 2.5 tenths of a second, now dropping down to just under 2.5 tenths of a second. Down into the hairpin for, I want to say, probably the 6th time so far. Given the driver has only done 3 laps, though, I'm going to say that's about their 4th time. Now, crossing that final corner, nice exit from the McLaren is what they need. The McLaren very, very quick at this track, and it's going to prove it so. As he crosses the line, goes from P8 to P6, just ahead of Usby. Usby on improvement, though, so that lap time may not stick for very long. I think he switched liveries in between the sessions. Have his updated livery on the car. A wonderful RSR livery. Not improving on his lap just yet. Ferlinski up in front of him is improving. And improving enough to potentially go up into P2 yet again. They're going to get held up by this Aston Martin, though, if they are not careful. I need a good exit from the final corner. It's going to be a poor exit from the final corner. Not going to improve on the lap time. And thankfully going to get that next lap in. The Aston Martin nice and respectful giving away. I don't know who that was in the Aston Martin. I believe that might have been Darkness. Darkness, of course, is now in the pits. Aston Martin, he's the only Aston Martin in the pits, so it must have been Darkness giving way in a nice, respectful manner. So always appreciate seeing that on track. Verlinski on big improvement now, 2.5 tenths of a second up, and all he needs is 3 tenths of a second to put himself into P2. In order to get up into P1, he needs a full second of improvement. There's so much time from Nico in P1, an amazing lap time that has yet to be bested and might well stay for the whole session. It's that time where we're not seeing a whole lot of improvement from drivers. Verlinski is about the only driver on improvement right now. Lots of people in the stream chat. Nico, that is a wonderful, wonderful lap. I know Nico is watching the stream right now. He is Dark Penguin 24, so anyone watching the stream, feel free to say hello to him. He somehow manages to keep up with the stream and race at the same time. I could not. Don't know how he does it. Verlinski is going to cross the line with 4 tenths of improvement. That will set him up into P2. A wonderful position right on the front row, and a great striking zone for turn 1 of this race. Misano, of course, great opportunities on the first lap to make up positions. Great opportunities to improve your points and position. And it's not necessarily a track where you have to play the pace game. Lots of strategy comes into play here at Misano, and plenty more overall pace comes into play. Yuzubi running all the way, using every bit of the curb, and crossing the line will improve 1 position up into P6, puts himself well within the range that Verlinski was prior. So if he can improve as Verlinski did, which it seems like he very much will do, as he goes 1.5 tenths up through just the first corner alone. Heavy braking for the chicane. This is where the Ferrari will struggle a little bit. You need a lot of rotation, and that means the Ferrari's got to be quite loose. It's not easy driving a loose Ferrari, especially when the car wants to grip up, wants to keep that front end planted, doesn't want to lose the rear quite so much. A lot of mid-engine cars in this game, of course, do like to lose the rear a lot. The McLaren just in front of that Ferrari is a good example of a car that drives with a lot of the rear of the car sideways. Ferrari is not quite one of those cars. Definitely needs more of a tailored driving experience. Tailored driving technique, in order to get all that you can out of it. That certainly fits the Yuzubi right now as he goes flying through the main straight, even getting held up by the car. He's still improving on his lap. Down into the hairpin for one of the final times this session. A maximum of 3 more times to go through there if the lap times are good. Will get held up by the McLaren if he is not careful and invalidate his very next lap, but he's improving on this lap. 3 tenths up as he crosses the line. What will it be? It's going to be an improvement up into P4, just on the back of Verlinski. Less than a tenth, half a tenth even, separating the pair of them. So big battle here for P3. Rufo, a driver I forgot even to mention, I didn't even see. He improved on his lap, went straight up into P2, and now improving potentially for P1. 3 minutes left in this qualifying session. Drivers, of course, if they cross the line before that 3 minutes is up, will get a full lap through. So you could potentially get an extra lap in if you time it right. And I believe these top-level drivers will be absolutely trying to time that right, doing everything they can to make sure they get that extra lap. Rufo will have a slipstream all the way down the straightaway that will help his pace tremendously. The Ford, of course, benefits a lot from the straightaways. Can't really use 6th gear here, and when you are in the slipstream, you can use 6th gear, but that's going to hold him up, and that's going to be his lap invalidated. That was so close between the pair of them. And that is Dirg in the chat, one of the Bluey Ferraris, his teammate in P5 right now. So certainly representing the team well. Dirg himself is in P21, so just outside of the points, but still great distance to get himself into the points for this race. Straight out of the ACM 6 Hours of Ankara Ring, I nearly raced that. I'm glad I didn't. I would have been up so early to be driving that. Lots of exciting racing going on in the ACC side of things. Of course, AC Evo on the horizon. I think a lot of us are looking forward to that. I'm holding out my hopes that it's everything we are hoping for and more. Rufo on improvement, Serabin on improvement, so close between the top of the grid right now. Everyone besides for Nico on improvement. Ferlinski will invalidate? No, he will lose a lot of lap time though, and not improve on this lap. Serabin on big improvement though is going to potentially put himself into P3 or 2 if he continues at this pace. Down the main straight for one of the final times will be his second to last time. He'll only have another lap after this to get it right. Yuzubi just in front is the car just behind, and Yuzubi will need to improve on his lap. He's on an out lap right now, or at least on an invalidated lap. Yuzubi will not improve. He will have to give way if he is not careful here. Serabin should get a nice slipstream. That's Yuzubi into the pit lane, so Yuzubi has cemented himself with his lap time. He will not improve. Serabin across the line will improve up into P3. A wonderful lap time from the Bluey Ferrari. Gonna get one last lap in for this session. And Ferlinski not on improvement right now, but is going through that main straight, so he will get one final lap in this race, and to see what position he can get for the qualifying. Nico still in P1 with that 33.532. A wonderful lap time from him that has yet to be bested. Rufo in P2 was on improvement to beat that lap, but has invalidated and will not get another lap in. So the top of the grid seems pretty well cemented right now, and Nico's on improvement, but it is an outlap according to my sheet. Cavalcanti is on improvement, if slight. Another driver on improvement, Andrew Taggart, will set himself up into P15 if he continues on this pace. Of course, it is just the start of the lap, so it is not early enough for it to be so set in stone. Driver just in front of him on improvement as well. That is the Porsche of Pranzo. Pranzo 3/10 up, but does invalidate, so they will not improve on their lap. Andrew Taggart may well be the last driver on a valid lap to cross the line, as Ferlinski just behind is not improving on their lap. And that is that Porsche that you see just in the background. That bright blue Porsche is Ferlinski. Driver just in front of Andrew Taggart is the 423 is... do not know. I don't have the slightest clue. So Andrew Taggart still on improvement. He will set himself up a few positions if he manages to keep this together. 4/10 up on his lap right now, 5/10 now. This could be quite far forward. This could be potentially top 10 territory if he doesn't mess up on that second to last corner, and that penultimate corner is going to cost him so much lap time, and then he validates on the final corner. So Andrew Taggart will not improve. Ferlinski crosses the line. He will improve, but it will not be a position gained for him, just barely. The gap at the front of the field, very, very close between these drivers. Nico, of course, taking P1, just ahead of Rufo, ahead of Serabin, ahead of Ferlinski, ahead of Yuzubi for our top 5 positions. Cavalcanti in P6, Kerlin in P7, Arct in P8, Keppers in P9, and a name I don't even dare try to pronounce in P10. You will have to tell me how on earth I pronounce that. plenty of drivers on the grid. We'll go through and look at some of these liveries. I always like looking at the liveries at the start of the season, and this season is no exception. This livery, on the other hand, we have seen many, many times before, and this is Nico's livery. Nico has raced with Phoenix Simsport for a fair amount of time now. He has a good number of wins under his belt in that short time that he has been racing with us. An endurance win and a full season win. Rufo in P2. No livery on that Ford, but it's still a good-looking car regardless. Serabin in P3, wrong car. Serabin in P3 with the bluey Ferrari that we have seen many times before, and I will never get tired of seeing it. A nice-looking livery that deserves its place on the grid. Ferlinski in P4 with his Big Dig Porsche livery. I believe his teammate is farther back on the grid because there was 2 of these Porsches, if I was remembering right from the practice session. Used to be with the RSR Ferrari livery, made by yours truly. Cavalcanti, sorry, in P6 with the McLaren, just a default in-game livery. Kerlin with a wonderful-looking Audi livery. I can't tell if this is an in-game livery or custom-made. I believe it is custom-made RPM livery. Art in P8 with his iconic livery. Keppers in P9 with a livery we haven't seen on the grid yet, but a wonderful-looking livery. One I will not get tired of seeing. Driver who I don't dare pronounce, the 557 with a wonderful looking metallic Lamborghini livery. Vieira? Oh, I'm gonna mispronounce everyone's name here. In that number 28 Aston Martin, wonderful looking livery here. Rivera in P12 with the Noobs Are Us Ferrari livery. I made a comment about it during the qualifying session. Ah, that's how you pronounce it. Ivanov in P50. Ivanov I have high hopes for at Misano. Driver does have a history here, and a very proud one at that. Kelly in P14 with the other RSR livery. So Usby and Kelly teaming up yet again for another Phoenix race. Malikov in P15 with a very neon wheel on a not-so-neon car. Flynn in P16 with a Marlboro Ford livery. Very nice looking. P17 for the McLaren of Wensick. Just a default in-game livery. I don't think there's anything fancy about that. Unless I am mistaken. Could be mistaken. Pranzo in the number 711 Porsche. The RPM livery. So I believe teamed up with the Audi up ahead. Not an official team, as they are not in the same car manufacturer. Andrew Taggart, who had a good shot at improvement, no longer improving and staying in P19. Still one of my personal favorites for all the liveries. The colors work wonderfully for that McLaren, and yeah, still my favorite livery on the grid. Jalowicki? Oh dear, I'm going to pronounce everyone's last name wrong. In the 992. And in that 992 number as well to match. Webby in the Audi with the fabulous Wobby McQueen livery. Derg in that the bluey Ferrari. Viper in the matching Marlboro Ford. Spinner in a non-liveried Audi. Crossland in the Mercedes with a nice simple livery. Gorney in the McLaren. Darkness in the Aston Martin. Pollock in the matching Porsche, so this would be Ferlinski's teammate. Peterson, I think is how you pronounce that, in P29 in a nice like synthwave looking McLaren. Markuson in the matching McLaren. Bill in a very simple but very nice looking Aston Martin. I believe that is custom. And Stick in a very nice watercolored camouflage looking McLaren. Nico will lead the grid though for the opening round of Phoenix SimSports Season 11 as we get going for the formation lap. Wonderful liveries on the grid. Everyone getting their tires nice and toasty. And we are going to see some exciting racing here today as drivers go cruising through the corners, getting themselves ready for a wonderful race. 32 drivers on the grid, 20 points paying positions, and only one race winner. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful fight for the drivers today. Nico leading the field, Rufo P2, and Sarabin in P3, rounding out our starting podium. Ferlinski and Yuzubi very close to each other, bumper to bumper for the start of the race, and those two have a rivalry going, and I'm sure we're going to see that rivalry continue today. Should be some wonderful racing. Lots of Ferraris all over the grid, but Ferraris at the front of the grid. Nico showing us a little bit of track limits there. I don't believe that is the racing line, but I could be mistaken. I'm sure Nico knows something that I do not. As we go cruising down the main straightaway, drivers will be getting ready to go side by side. Soon as they're side by side, it's hold position, get ready for the green, and it will be away and we go. It's a long straightaway though, so we'll have plenty of time to watch as the drivers go through. Again, 1 hour of racing looms ahead of these drivers. It's a long time to go. 1 hour, not nearly as short as it feels in the car, but you can get a lot done in an hour. You can get a lot done in even just 15 minutes. So we're going to see some action today. Pit entry here might be a little bit cluttered with how many cars there are. And pit entry here at Misano, quite difficult to get right. Side by side they go. This will be the hold speed section. Drivers will have to hold their speed as they go across the line. Final corner there. You can see the pit lane on the left enticing, waiting for the drivers to make that pit lane later on in the race. Side by side across the line. It's going to be Nico leading the field, and we're going to get ready to go racing here at Phoenix SimSport for Season 11. First round of Misano. Lights are ready to go, and it's green, 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 and away we go. Down into turn one. It's going to be Nico with a great launch off the line, holding off the Ford, but a great braking from the Ford is going to hold him on the inside. Very, very close. Nico's going to close the door and slam it shut, keeping the drivers behind out of the fight. Yuzubi gaining the position to Ferlinski, moving himself up into P4. Ford on the back of Nico for P1. Ferlinski on the back of Yuzubi for P4. Sarabin looking for a move past the Ford with that opportunity completely shut down from Nico. Lamborghini, I think my sheet is inaccurate right now. Yuzubi giving up the position to Ferlinski, retiring the car. So returning to the pit lane instantly for Yuzubi. I wonder what happened there. But that's going to be Ferlinski moving himself up into P4. Sarabin P3, and it's a race restart. So something happened. Something happened that I have completely missed. I think we'll be able to look at the chat. We will not be able to look at the chat to see. A lot of contacts through turn one. The 96 made contact with the 77. I think not able to get the replay of it. Well, hopefully another steward saved that replay for me. Yeah, so contact between 96, 77, 76, 724, 21, 4, 5, 6, 8, 8, 1, 2, 28,419, 21,12, 88,50, 83,76, 88,456, 83,50, 18,77, all in the span of less than 30 seconds. So, I think something big happened at the back of the field that we just missed out on. It was a good battle at the front of the field, and that will certainly impact the racing results. Ferlinski had lost the position to Usabi initially. Now, it's not going to be so easy for the Ferrari driver. Getting reports that someone didn't brake for turn 3. Let me just put, I'll put the stream on a pause for a minute while I go check over with my other stewards. And we are back racing yet again. That little hiccup has been solved. Stewart team has talked it over. We'll evaluate the rest of that incident after the race. But yeah, we are going again for the formation lap. It'll just be a full race restart. Stewards have been advised we're going to take a little bit of extra time if it does happen again. That way we can go through and make sure that whoever was at fault for the incident gets returned to the pit lane and does not get to start the race with everyone else. Of course, it can happen where you can, on accident, cause a red flag. That's why returning to the pit lane is always the better option. it's better to start in the pit lane and not have to risk that incident. I know I have caused my fair share of red flags before, not here in Phoenix SimSport, but over in another league. I may or may not have been the cause of a 40-car pileup. The best of scenes. Colliding side by side up Eau Rouge is never going to end well when you're at the front of the grid. Hopefully should be a nice clean start today. Or rather this race now instead of the prior. Hopefully a driver saved the replay as we did not manage to capture it. Front of the grid was quite clean though, so I expect to see a repeat of that cleanliness. That is always the hope. As down the main straight we go, Nico leading the field yet again. Rufo in P2 will try to get a better launch this time than he did before. The Ford, of course, very, very quick on the starts, very, very quick on the gas, very, very quick, generally just about everywhere. Ferrari, not the best at starts, but very, very quick over a full race distance. And the Porsche, very, very quick in the corners, not as quick on the straights. So 3 very opposing builds for the cars in the top 5, and the Ferrari is the favorite of those cars. Apologies. Side by side, we're going to go for our second start of the day. See if the drivers can keep it clean. We're going to go on board with Rufo, see what he can do in P2. Side by side, drivers have to hold their speed. Lights are ready to go out and go green as we get ready for another start here at Misano. Our first round of racing here for Season 11, and it's green, green, green. A much better launch for Nico is going to put the threat on Sarabin and Rufo behind. Rufo very heavy on the brakes. Ferlinski holding off Uzubi this time. No collisions at the back of the field just yet. Uzubi in P5 side by side for Kerlin. Kerlin holding on to P6, I believe going up into P6. Uzubi very close on the back of that Porsche. And it's going to be Nico, then Rufo, then Sarabin out of that first chicane. Down onto the back straight. Sarabin under threat. No, Ferlinski under threat from Uzubi still in that Porsche. Not going to get the straight line speed that he needs. Kerlin had moved himself up into P6. Ivanov in P7. If the graphic will update. Wonderful drive from him. Kelly going side by side behind with that, I believe that is Flynn? So Kelly losing the position to Flynn. Moves down into P11. Keppers into P10. So not Flynn, Keppers in P10. Vieira in P9. And Ferlinski very, very close on the back of Sarabin here as we go down into the hairpin. This could be a good shot for the drivers to overtake. Uzubi getting very, very close on the bumper of that Porsche. Not going to be a move just yet, though. And down onto the pit straight for the second time today, technically third time today, if you count the race restart. Drivers crossing the line with their lap times, and already a gap was formed at the front of the grid. Nico running 1.2 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. Rufo running 0.7 ahead of Sarabin, and Ferlinski, Uzubi, both separated by 0.5 of a second. Gap has closed in with Kerlin as well, that Audi behind, closing in on this group. And it's a 4-way fight right now for P3. Everyone bumper to bumper, but it's going to be Ferlinski under the most threat of them all, with Uzubi right behind him. You can see those distances are a whole lot shorter when you look from on the car rather than above the car. And down into the hairpin they go to get to the main straight, and it's going to be very close. Ferlinski's going to have to think about defending here, as Uzubi's going to get a great run down the straightaway. Not the best of exits, though, for the Ferrari driver. And it's not going to be the opportunity at a move just yet. Audi behind very quick in a straight line. Vieira under threat from Keppers behind. Keppers trying to squeeze his way down the inside, and that's Vieira off the track. So side by side, and it's going to be Vieira losing the position to one, maybe even two drivers if they do not play their cards right. Thankfully, they stay in position, and now Keppers will try to run away and hold his position, his new gained position. Kelly behind will be eyeing up the Audi or the Aston Martin in front. Will be being eyed up by the Porsche behind, though. Jalowecki, I think it's Jalowecki. Very, very close behind the Ferrari RSR driver. So that Rocket Stallion not rocketing ahead nearly as much as they'd want to. And on to the middle straight for one of the first times this race. Drivers, of course, will have to do a pit stop later on in this race. And that pit lane is not nearly as easy as it looks. From my personal experience, and apologies. Ugh. There was a race restart. Yeah, we had to restart the race. Essentially, I think someone just went straight on for turn 3. There was a massive 8 different incidents in the same section of track. So stewards did a race restart, and now we are going yet again. Berlinski quite close on the back of Sarabin here. This could be a move if he gets a good run out of this final corner. And it's going to be a great run from the Porsche down into T1. Not going to be able to make the move, but might be able to stay close enough to make the move later on. A bad line from the Ferrari driver could have them under threat here into the chicane. And it's going to be nice and tidy from the Ferrari. Not nice and tidy from the Porsche. And it's going to put him under a little bit of extra threat from Yuzubi behind us. That's going to just close in the distances and reduce the... Oh, apologies. There we go. There's the game sound. Now reduce the distances and close up that gap. I forgot I had my my desktop muted. It is no longer muted, so you should be able to hear the game nice and clearly. Apologies for that. Ferlinski still closing in. I think Ferlinski is the faster driver here. Certainly proving as much with staying right on the bumper of the car in front. But just not able to gain the speed on the straight, as you can see from this front bumper cam. Right on that front splitter, and just not getting the pace he needs in order to close that distance to that Ferrari. Even with the slipstream, it's just not nearly enough. So he's going to have to make the move at a section where it's not really that easy to make the move. Rivera loses the position to Keppers. Very, very close behind. Nearly a contact between the Noobs Are Us Ferrari and the RPM. No, is it RPM? The Velocity Vanguard Ford. But that will be Keppers up a position. I believe making the move into the hairpin. We'll have a look and see in the replay what was done. May or may not have gone too far back. We'll see here. As a mighty dive from the Ford is going to have him close in that gap. And I believe just making the move on this straightaway here. Ford, of course, the quickest car on the straight for just about every track in the game, and yeah, making the move before the corner. So nice and tidy from the Ford to take that position, and he should be able to run away soon as he hits the straightaway yet again. So good racing here so far. Significantly cleaner than the racing we were seeing prior. And that is the Lamborghini moving himself up a position to Gorney. So Gorney dropping back into P21. No, this is the Lambo gaining the position to Crossland. Everyone's showing a yellow flag for me right now, but I'm not seeing a yellow on track. Andrew Taggart has moved himself up into P12, so he's pushed forward from his starting position. Just gaining the position on the straightaway to the Porsche. Porsche struggling a lot on the straightaways right now, and a very, very close, nearly contact that's going to lose the Porsche position to Arced now, side by side as they go through turn 2. And a little bit of a braking mistake from the Porsche nearly has them collide with Andrew Taggart. Good avoiding action, manages to just about save the McLaren driver from a world of hurt, and now the Porsche takes that world of hurt into his own and moves back a position. Spinner moving up a position. I think Webby may or may not have made a mistake there. We'll see if we can catch on replay what happened, as the gaps were not close. And yeah, just a mistake from Webby. Must have lost control of the car on exit of turn 2. That moves Spinner up into P15, Webby down into P16, and now under threat from the Porsche behind, as the Porsche makes a dive down for the apex onto the straightaway. Will the Audi get a run on the exit, though? That is the question. The Audi is the quicker car on the straight, so he may well be able to make this move and make it stick. 10 minutes of racing, and we've already had a full race of action ahead, and I suppose behind is the better word. Andrew Taggart losing the position to Arced, I think making another mistake. So these mistakes, hard to catch on the stream. I only get to see the references when they are significantly close together, and those mistakes end up catching quite a bit of distance between the drivers. Now it is Arced chasing down Kelly, trying to run away from Maverick. Now Maverick, of course, Andrew Taggart. And yeah, just running to the outside of the track for Andrew Taggart. Just a bad exit from the corner. And losing that position on the end of the straightaway. Yeah, getting used to my old software again as well. Definitely makes it a little bit more complicated. Old software does bug out sometimes. Not the most accurate thing. Andrew Taggart under threat still from the Porsche behind, and that will potentially translate into a move later on. Andrew Taggart running wide yet again. Another mistake for the McLaren driver is going to lose him another position, dropping down into P14 from what was P12. So just falling down the order in that McLaren after having moved forward so far forward at the start of this race. Starting position, of course, started in P19, moved up into P12, so that would have been 7 positions gained, but now it's only 5 as he's dropped back into P14. From the field has stayed as is, but Kurlin, Ivanov, Keppers, Rivera, Vieira, and Kelly have all gained positions. Arced has dropped back 4 positions from his start. Jalowecki has gained 19 positions according to my sheet, and up into P13 from a starting position of P32. So proving that the starting position doesn't matter nearly so much here at Misano, and a great push forward from him. Franzo gaining the position to Spinner in that Audi. Go back and catch it on replay if I can. Missing a lot of these overtakes here, so it seems like just another mistake out of that final corner. He's going to lose the Audi the position, and the Porsche getting a better run out of that final corner will of course take that position away and move himself up into P15. So a great position for him. Good points to score for today. And it's not over just yet. Nico still just running away with P1. I think we've come to expect this by now. Would love to see in the chat what everyone thinks the ideal strategy for this race is. Keep in mind, drivers are required to do a pit stop. They're required to add at least 1 liter of fuel. They are not required to change tires. But if they do not change tires, it's 25 seconds in the pits. If they do, it's 30. So you don't lose a ton of time with the tires. Interested to see what people would do with that strategy if you were in these drivers' shoes, though. Andrew Taggart very, very close on the back of that Porsche. This battle is not over just yet as we go down into turn 1. McLaren very quick here for the straights, for the high-speed corners. McLaren, of course, has the highest wing in the game when the wing is set to minimum compared to other cars when set to their minimum. That is unfortunate, Dirk. Hope to see you on track again. Were you repairing damage or just falling behind? Position gained for the McLaren of Cavalcanti. I think the Mercedes just running a little bit wide, making a mistake as they make yet another mistake and lose yet more time to the McLaren. Lots of mistakes here, and I think that is the moral of the story for today's race: is make a mistake, lose a position. Most drivers are gaining their positions due to the opposing driver just making a small mistake, and that's really all it takes for you to gain those positions, to lose those positions, and to move up and down the grid quite significantly. That's unfortunate, Dirk. Yeah, suspension damage in the Ferrari is the worst. Quite unbearable when you're driving the Ferrari. Certainly plays a big impact for that car as opposed to other cars in similar situations with damage. Apologies if you can hear my fan, I'm just getting that turned off. As quite chilly right now. Art has closed in on the car in front, and that is Kelly now under threat as Art tries to squeeze his way through. Not quite enough space for the BMW to fit, but he will try again onto the main straight. No, he will wait and get a good run out of this final corner, and that is Kelly under a significant amount of threat from the BMW behind. And now down the main straight for one of the first still one of the first times this race, as we still have another 45 minutes ahead of us. And not losing the position just yet. Kelly with a good run, Arct with a poor run, and that will keep Kelly safe for the time being. But that safety only lasts so long, and it's going to be quite tricky. And Nico saying what his strategy is, just a 50-50 split, so he'll pit about the 30-minute mark, give or take, and he will change tires on the car. Ideal strategy if you are just prolonging your car for the highest possible pace. Not the ideal strategy if you're trying to make a move or defend against a move, but I think Nico is confident that he can stay ahead of the driver behind. Most drivers here in Phoenix, and just in general, ACC, opt for a longer stint time, as that is where you can gain quite a bit of advantage. Going longer means that you are on worse tires for a little bit of extra time, but it also means that you will spend just as much time on some really, really good tires towards the latter half of the race, where not everyone's on good tires. So you end up with a tire advantage, you can overtake more easily, and if you are in a situation where pace doesn't matter nearly as much, a later pit stop will certainly benefit you. Arct is benefiting from some straight line speed right now, though. Side by side with the RSR Ferrari. Kelly trying to hold it around the outside, and will hold it around the outside. Arct diving down the inside, though, and it is going to be a contact between the pair of them. I don't know who was at fault for it, but Kelly's continued to go while Arct has ended up off the track. And we'll just go back 15 seconds to have another look at that. And I think it's just late braking from Arct, colliding with the back bumper of that Ferrari. And that's going to be some big damage to that RSR. Nice looking... I always want to say pineapple colored. It reminds me of a pineapple, and I don't know why. 'Cause it's certainly not with the blue. Pineapples are not blue, but the front of it certainly is that sort of orangish. Ferlinski in P4, making good progress, staying with Sarabin right now. Good battle for P3. So Sarabin doing well for your team, Derg, but he's still been under threat this entire time, and the pressure has got to be getting to him. Porsche on your bumper for the entire first half of the race is never going to be a good feeling, never going to be stress-free, and I'm sure Ferlinski wouldn't have it any other way. But Sarabin will have to continue to keep his nose steady, keep his car steady, and keep himself heading in the right direction to hold on to this position. It's the fight for the podium today, and I don't think this fight is going to end anytime soon. I just have to wonder if the strategy is going to play any impact here at all. Ferlinski, of course, opts for the late pit stop many, many more times than he opts for the early pit stop. And he could absolutely make the move if he times that pit stop right and gains on the fresher tires. That fresher rubber could play a huge impact, bigger than I think Sarabin might be thinking about. And the biggest threat with that is that Ferlinski is almost certainly carrying more fuel. So Ferlinski is going to be able to go for a lot longer than Sarabin, even if Sarabin wanted to try and match that pit stop. And that's where that that kind of strategy works. Is your enemy ends up, I suppose enemy is a little bit of a harsh word, opponent ends up pitting earlier than you, and while they exit the pit lane, they're not going to be at full speed. You can gain a lot of time in the pit stop just by not having to do that outlap so early. And then you end up doing that outlap, but if you're already ahead by that point, all you got to do is defend for that outlap rather than set a good pace when you're on non-ideal conditions. Arct and Taggart look like they are about to have another fight here. Arct, of course, did lose the position to Taggart with his collision with Kelly. Kelly is that orange and blue car up ahead of the this group. Only 2 seconds down the road from the Porsche, though. So not the biggest of gaps. I think the collision will have diminished that gap quite significantly. So we'll see how it ends up for these drivers. Who ends up on top, who ends up behind. There's a good chance that Arct gets away with no penalties from that incident, as he is really the only driver to suffer consequences. Kelly kept going A-OK. Very, very close there under braking between the McLaren and the Porsche, but it's going to be the McLaren staying right behind. No collisions so far, but certainly a chance for a collision if this keeps up too much longer. On to the straightaway for the first quarter of racing done. More than a quarter of racing done, I think, as we are nearing about the halfway mark. Very, very close, and it's going to be a great run from Arct entering the corner. It's going to be a great run from Arct exiting the corner, though, as we're going to go on board with the bonnet of that BMW. The bonnet high enough that we can see almost clear above the McLaren. And it's a great launch from the BMW. So much straight line speed, but he's going to have to back out early to avoid any sort of contact. I think Arct is a little bit more cautious now that he's had one collision this race. It's going to set him a little bit uneasy and make him less likely to go for some of those riskier maneuvers. I'm always a fan of going for risky maneuvers, so it's a shame that we might not see one here from Arct. Risky maneuvers are my bread and butter as a driver. And this could be quite bad for Jalowinski. Or Jalowecki. I don't know why I want to say Winsky. Need to shake that habit. It's like me calling Flynn and... Who's it? Oliver Flynn and Oliver suffocating the same person. Shook that habit, thankfully. Still quite close between the drivers. We're going to go on board with the bonnet of the BMW yet again, see if he can get the launch. It's a bad exit from the McLaren, a little bit of a missed apex from the BMW. Neither driver getting the exit they need, but it should be the BMW with a better launch down the straightaway. The McLaren does have the slipstream of the Porsche in front, but that slipstream from the BMW is quite significant. Closing that distance, and it's a bad exit from the BMW, just easing off a little bit. It's a big slide for the McLaren, not a lot of turn-in for the BMW. Understeer versus oversteer, and right now it's coming out to about the same. Final corner now, and it's going to be Mav in that McLaren diving into the pit lane, and he will be the first of the drivers in the top 15 to pit for any sort of reason. Actually, top of the, first of the top 20 to pit for any sort of reason. That'll be him changing tires almost certainly, making them last the next 35 minutes. It is about the time you need if you want to go for that undercut, so he very well could make this work. It's a long pit stop here, though, so it's not going to pay off quite yet. He'll have to wait a while for it to properly pay off, but once it does, he may gain this position to a few drivers here, especially if you get that pit stop right. Getting the pit stop right, the pit entry, the stopping, the pit exit can gain you upwards of 5 seconds of extra time to opponents who mess up those various different factors. Pit stops here in ACC are very, very precise, and if you get even one tire wrong, you will be suffering some of the consequences. Speaking of consequences, Kelly may well suffer some consequences right now. The gap has closed in to less than a second from what was over 2 seconds of distance between them. And now that is Kelly under a significant amount of threat from the Porsche driver as they go through the penultimate corner, now into the final section, into the pit stop, and you can see where that experience from the RSR Ferrari has come into play. A little bit of a better pit entry is going to gain him some time over the Porsche, keep him nice and safe for when he exits the pit lane. Cavalcanti quite close on the back of the Audi. Audi's going to dive into the pit lane, avoid that fight entirely. That's going to be Cavalcanti gaining position. Now it's hammer time for the McLaren to see if he can hold on to the position. A good pace from him here will set himself up into a winning position, gaining the position to the cars that entered the pit lane before him. But that all entails that he can keep up the pace and keep up the race. Webby under threat from Flynn and Crossland behind. Both drivers very, very close on his bumper, so he's not out of the woods yet for that Audi driver who was in a world of his own only a few minutes prior, and now he's side by side losing the position to the BMW of Flynn and potentially even Crossland, but Crossland getting a bad exit, not managing to make up the space. Certainly was close enough to make the move though, so that will be Webby breathing a breath of fresh air with one opportunity squandered already. And McLaren side by side with the Mercedes, so that Mercedes not so safe anymore, under threat from Julian, one or the other. I'm sure I'll get it right eventually. That is McLaren off the track. I believe that is a blue flag McLaren Very, very slow into the hairpin. I think there might have been contact between the pair of them. No incident there, though, so stewards will have no issue with it if there was contact. Yeah, it's just a little nudge. Cavalcante losing the position to Webby as he enters the pit lane. So now Webby moving himself up into P14 temporarily. I don't know if you can see which drivers have a mandatory pit stop on my screen. I can tell you which drivers have served the pit stop, though. And that is Stick, Markussen, Darkness, the Lamborghini, Peterson, Viper, Spinner, Jalowecki, Taggart, Kelly, Pollock, Cavalcante, Bill are all drivers who have served their pit stops. Curlin in P6 has served his pit stop, so very far forward considering he's stopped for at least fuel. And now Crossland, looking at the bumper of that Audi, will try to get a good run down the straightaway, but the Audi is much, much quicker down this main straightaway. Halfway marker for the drivers, so this is where drivers will really need to start thinking about when they want to pit and how they want this race to end. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world as the Mercedes goes very deep under braking, nearly collides with the Audi. Thankfully, very good brakes on the Mercedes car and very good braking from the Mercedes driver gets that thing stopped in a timely manner and down onto the main straight for yet another time. Down onto the pit straight, sorry, for yet another time. Flynn gains the position to a few drivers who are pitting, so gaining back his time that he lost with his pit stop. And we will see the pit stop shuffle occur on the race today. DT for Arct being served, and now Arct will drop back into P14 after that DT has been served. Drive-through is never what you want to see here at Misano. Very easy to get a drive-through here at Misano. I know, at least from my experience driving here, my teammates end up getting a lot of drive-throughs. I will not mention names, but you know who you are. It's quite an easy track to run, just a little hair wide and get yourself a warning. And especially where you're running those hairs wide, it'll give you more warnings, more warnings than if you were to completely cut the track and slow down just a little bit. Weird how it works here in ACC, but it is how it is. And how it is Arct trying to make it into a side-by-side situation, not quite able to, but quite close to doing so. And now Crossland under a huge amount of threat from Wenzek as they go down through the penultimate corner, and it's going to be Crossland and I believe that was Arct diving into the pit lane. No, not Arct, but instead it was... I would not know. No, it is Arct diving into the pit lane. So it must have been another BMW just behind him that I saw as well. But he will be stationary for a full 25 seconds at the minimum, 30 seconds at the maximum, unless he is repairing damage on top of all that. I believe this is Wenzek dealing with his first blue flag situation. Car behind should be up on him in terms of positions, or behind him in terms of positions. We'll find out in a moment. Very much seems like it is down a position. That is Peterson. So yes, Peterson is down a position, just staying with the car in front for as much as he can. Sarabin and Nico into the pit lane. Will go on board with our current race leader Yuzubi, followed behind by his teammate Kelly. Kelly, a full lap down to the front of the field now. Yuzubi nowhere near Nico's pace quite yet. Yuzubi has experience racing against Nico, and a lot of his experience has been spent on the back foot, and this race is no exception. But it's never over till it's over. And there is always an opportunity for anything to happen here in ACC, here in Phoenix SimSport. So you can never count out drivers until they are truly out of the race. Lots of drivers leaving the pit lane. That will create a little bit of a jumble on the side of the screen. So if you see lots of positions exchanging, do not worry, you are not missing anything of significant value. It is just a bunch of drivers pitting and dealing with the consequences of pitting. McLaren, or not McLaren, the Porsche in front of Andrew Taggart does have a drive-through, so they will enter the pits to serve that drive-through, and that will be Andrew moving up a position into P17. A wonderful drive from him, no, up into P16. A wonderful drive from him to gain that position, and a good up from his starting position. P15 after a stationary driver is passed in the pit lane, and that's where you're going to see a lot of these positions start to change around. Drivers in the pit lane who got ahead because the driver ahead of them, in this case it would be Andrew Taggart, pitted earlier than them. So they'll drop back those positions, and we will roughly end up with the same situation we had in the first half of this race, where you got a few trains of drivers, but not all too bad. Ferlinski looking for the move, tries to go down the inside of the McLaren. Space is left and space is taken, and that is the Porsche moving up into P6, sorry. Beat takes just a little second to update, and that update is quite crucial for my commentating ability. Wenzek will try to chase down the Porsche and chase down the position if he can manage. 25 minutes on the clock remain, so not a huge amount of time remaining for these drivers to do their thing, to take their positions, to fight back for those positions. It's going to get very, very close towards the end here as this race continues on, and these gaps do not grow. Andrew Taggart moving up into P14 after Bill emerges from the pit lane. That will be a position gained for him. 14, of course, worth plenty of good points, and I don't think any drivers will be upset with a P14 finish. But I know a lot of drivers here are shooting for those top spots, shooting for as far up as they can manage. It should always be the goal in a racing game. Very close between Rivera and Gorney, so they may well fight as they approach the end of the straightaway. 0.5 seconds separating, 0.4, 0.3. That gap has closed down significantly through that final little section. Now penultimate corner, it's a better line for Rivera, and that may well be him around the outside, taking the position. He runs wide, cuts the track, and that is going to be Gorney into the pit lane for the first and only time this race, hopefully. And now Rivera has to get his foot down if he wants to hold on to this position at all. Yeah, I needed more coffee this morning. I think that's what I needed. Two drivers in the pit lane losing positions. That'll be Kelly and Keppers, and Taggart gaining a position. Should be Vieira as well gaining position to the two stationary cars. And 2/3 of the race gone. Only a third of the race distance remaining. 20 minutes on the clock for these drivers to make these moves. It's starting to become desperate, starting to become a whole lot closer than it was before. So we'll see where that plays impact, and whether or not drivers are too aggressive or not for the conditions. It is nice clear weather though, so drivers will not have to worry about poor weather ruining their day. They will, or Spinner will have to worry about Jelowecki ruining his position though, as the Porsche goes flying past and manages to snatch away P16 just for a minute there, and snatch it away properly for a longer minute time. Heavy braking from the Porsche though, gonna put himself right back in front and right back behind for Pranzo. Berlin threatening to take away the position from Wentzek, and will take away the position from Wentzek, moving himself up into P6. Just one position shy of his starting position, I do believe. It's horribly, horribly mistaken. And yeah, one position up on his starting position. Down on his starting position. So doing well for himself is Kerlin. Apologies if you can hear my dog. And the field has sort of spread out. Strategy battle is well into effect, and most of the strategy battle is completely done for. So now it's just about making those overtakes and making them stick. That's going to make drivers a little bit more desperate since they don't have nearly as many opportunities. Pranzo trying to move around the outside of the middle straight hairpin. Not going to be able to make the move, but might be able to make it on the exit of this next corner. Down onto the straightaway is a great spot to make a move, and on the straightaway itself is an equally great spot to make a move. And side by side down the main straight, that's going to be Pranzo on that inside line. Contact between the two of them, that is okay. Just a little bit of door rubbing, and it's Pranzo taking the position, moving into P16 and demoting Jelowecki down into P17. This battle's not over yet as they go through the penultimate corner and into the ultimate corner for the pit straight, and it is not over yet, especially with a Porsche. Lots of acceleration, but not a lot of straight line speed means that the Porsches benefit significantly from the slipstream, and that slipstream benefit could absolutely play impact here. Wentzek is very, very close on the back of Ivanov for P7. Ivanov in an amazing position compared to where he started, so no doubt he'll want to hold on to this position for as long as he can. But for as long as he can is only for as long as he can. The position easily could trade places. Yuzubi right on the back of Nico right now. I think, has Yuzubi served his pit stop? Yes, but I don't think my screen is showing accurately. Because right now, yeah, it was showing Yuzubi directly by. Now it has updated and fixed itself. Yuzubi gaining the position to Ferlinski in the pit stops, and that's what we were talking about with some of those late pit stops. You do lose some time, and you can be overtaken if you are not careful, and not careful, Ferlinski was. So, quite close between all the drivers right now. Gaps have opened up quite significantly. Some of them, though. Still, close enough for drivers to make some moves, and Ferlinski is looking to make a move. As I say that, I look away from the screen, and Wentzek is completely sideways onto the straightaway, and that's not the direction you want to be facing. You will lose the position, dropping into P8. Ivanov can breathe a fresh breath of relief, knowing that he is no longer under serious threat from the McLaren behind. He will still need to keep his pace up, though, in order to disallow the McLaren from closing in on him. Into the final corner he goes, looking nice and... Vera closing in on Wenzek. Wenzek into the pit lane. So Wenzek, I don't know if that's a blunder or something, but certainly not a good time to pit, especially so late into the race, especially when you've already served your pit stop. I can't imagine that Wenzek hasn't served his pit stop yet, but perhaps I am mistaken. Peppers gains the position to Wenzek as well as they remain stationary in the pit lane. Spinner also closing in on the driver in front, Jelowecki. Walensky closing in on Uzebe here on the main straightaway. Sorry if I'm lagging a little bit behind, trying to keep my focus up. Still, again, early in the morning for me, so hard for me to focus 100% on the racing. No move just yet, but Ferlinski is certainly going to put the pressure on, and with less than a car's length separating the pair of them as they go through the final corner, it's going to be a good exit from the Porsche. Uzebe will need to think about defending, or he will be under some serious threat right now. Down into T1, down into T2. Will the Porsche send the move? Not quite yet. Ferlinski staying wise. Keeping his eye right on that rear wing, right on that rear bumper, and hardly a gap to separate them right now as Ferlinski keeps getting great runs through the corners. Onto that middle straight for one of the final times with only a quarter of the race left to go. We are nearly there. Halfway past the halfway mark means that there's hardly any time left at all. Going to be the two championship rivals going at it yet again. I called it at the start of the race. I knew there's going to be a fight, and now there certainly is one, as they're going to go side by side down the main straight. And it's going to be the Porsche on the inside, Ferrari on the outside. Ferrari has the better straight line speed, Porsche has the better cornering, and it's going to be Porsche pulling ahead. So Ferlinski gaining the position to Uzebe, will hold on to P4, but now Uzebe will have to fight back. Uzebe will be a little bit off track there, squeezed to the outside of the track. Bumper cam for him, real close between the pair of them. And now onto the final corner. Will be a good exit from the Ferrari. Will it be a good exit from the Porsche? Will it be a good exit from both of them? We're about to see, and it's a little bit of a wide exit from the Ferrari driver, losing some time. And a good exit from the Porsche is going to keep them nice and safe as they go down into T1, down into T2, and onto the heavy throttle zone of T3. Better braking for the Ferrari is going to gain them some time initially, but better exit for the Porsche is going to drag that gap out just a little bit more. Chicane here is better for the Porsche than it is for the Ferrari. And it's quite a competitive little battle we've got going on here. 0.7 of a second separating the two of them. And that is really all you need to stay close enough to get that slipstream, stay in that fight, and take advantage of any big mistakes. Mistakes, of course, are where you're going to see the easiest overtakes, but you can absolutely force a mistake if you are driving well enough. I hope everyone's enjoying the stream so far. This has been a very exciting race with everything going on. Hardly a break to breathe, and I'm certainly feeling that. And right now, Nico still in a world of his own, completely alone in P1, and I think it's going to stay that way for the entirety of the race, unless something tragic happens, like a drive-through or a stop-go, or anything of the sort. That's really that all could take away Nico's plans. A DT for Pranzo, DT for Spinner, so both drivers will have to serve a drive-through penalty, and a drive-through here is quite painful. But Uzebe falling behind is losing a lot of time to Kieran, or to Ferlinski, sorry. Krillin just behind, closing in that gap slowly but steadily. Vieira in P12, also quite close behind. Kelly now under threat from the Aston Martin yet again. Kelly certainly not having the best of luck this race with non-stop action behind him. Nobody seems to be wanting to leave him alone. Through the first few corners he goes down into the chicane. .6 of a second separating Vieira and Kelly. 0.7 of a second separating Cavalcanti. This race has sort of calmed down a little bit. He's still half asleep, barely woken up. Kelly and Vieira both getting themselves a drive-through. Pranzo with a 30-second stop go. So Vieira and Kelly will both lose this position, and Cavalcanti, will gain a position to both of them as they enter the pit lane. Sorry. From P1 to P2, it is a 16-second gap, so the gap is quite significant right now. Serabin from P3 to P2 is 6 seconds, and Ferlinski to P3 is 8 seconds. So, gaps have opened up quite significantly. Vieira right on the bumper of Kelly, and this overtake is for position, even though both drivers here do have to serve a drive-through penalty. Both of them will enter the pit lane at around about the same time, so whoever gets the better pit entry is almost certainly going to get the better run out of the pit exit and gain the position. So drive-through playing an impact, and it will play quite a significant impact, as believe that was Cavalcanti giving way to Vieira, or at least trying to make the move and not managing it successfully. So, quite close between the three of them, but as mentioned, Kelly and Vieira both have a drive-through penalty, so they will not be able to benefit from each other's penalties even. Pranzo serving his 30-second stop-go penalty. And I think we're going to see the pair of these drivers serve their penalties on this lap. As Kelly swerves to the inside, so does Vieira, and it's going to be whoever gets the better exit from their pits. And it looks like it's going to be Kelly holding the lead, but just barely. Cavalcanti gaining 2 positions, moving up into P11, and Andrew Taggart up in P10, sneaking his way by a lot of the drivers from his starting P19 position. So a great drive from the McLaren driver, from the representing Phoenix SimSport driver. A wonderful drive from him, and I don't think he will be able to gain any more positions. So now it's just about keeping it steady for the last 8 minutes of racing. Only 7 or so laps left to go. We're nearly at the end here. Kelly will hold on to his position ahead of the Aston Martin, but it's going to take a good pit exit from him in order to hold on to it for a long time. Side by side with that, I believe that is Serabin, so serving that blue flag, and that is a nice position for Kelly to be in, just behind one of the lead drivers. Nice slipstream for him to abuse down the straightaway. Nice lines for him to copy if he is paying good attention. Flynn very, very close behind Jalowecki. And this could be another fight here for P13. Jalowecki not in the clear just yet. That 992 Porsche, not very quick in a straight line, and that's going to put him under a lot of threat from the BMW as we go down the main straight for one of the last times. Not going to be many overtaking opportunities left, so this is going to be a big shot for the BMW if he's able to get the run, and he's not able to get the run. Porsche running all the way out to the outside of the track. It's a beautiful line from the Porsche to keep himself nice and safe, and that will protect him from just a little bit of the pressure from the BMW behind, but not entirely. Vieira still right on the back of Kelly, and that is the fight just behind these two now. So if they work together, they could absolutely close this gap, and we could see a four-way battle right at the end of the race, and that would certainly be an exciting thing to witness. Sorry about my dog. I think someone's at the door. And thankfully, I think it is being answered, so I do not need to get up. Flynn has lost a little bit of time to Jalowecki, so I think a mistake made from the BMW driver. Now that leaves Vieira and Kelly to juke it out and see who wants this P15 finish. P15, of course, is worth a few extra points over the difference between P17 and P16, since every 5 intervals the points go up. So P15 is quite a significant amount of points difference compared to P16. So we'll see how these drivers fare as we enter the final 5 minutes of racing, nearly the end of the race. Nico still running away with the lead, running away with the fastest lap. I don't think anyone's going to challenge Nico at the front of the grid. He can almost serve a full drive-through penalty and get away with it, but not quite yet. Final corner they go. Vieira just behind Kelly, very wide for the Aston Martin. They will take the warning and continue on their merry way. Kelly still under threat, will stay under threat for the next 5 minutes, but no, the Aston Martin, huge slide through turn 1. I think their tires are starting to go. The Aston Martin does abruptly drop off on tires, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. Wenzek very, very close behind Webby for P17, so might see a battle here for another position as they go through the first corner, through the second, and through the sweeping third, and into the chicane for one of the last times this race. Only 4 minutes left on the clock, and it is starting to get intense at the back of the midfield. These points-paying positions are well worth it for these drivers for their championship chances. Down the middle straight and into the into the hairpin for the back straight. 4 minutes left on the clock is only about 3-4 more laps of racing, give or take, depending on when Nico crosses the line. I think given where Nico is right now, it might be 4 laps left to go. So drivers have quite a road ahead of them as we go through the straightaway for one of the final times. The Wenzek losing sight of Webby just a little bit, falling back. Webby getting his foot down. Flynn has closed back in on Jalowecki, so not quite safe for the Porsche driver as we go through turn 1. 3 minutes left on the clock. At that time is dwindling, and this is the fight to watch. Nico right now in a world of his own, Rufo in a world of his own, and Sarabin in a world of their own. The top 3 all running away with their positions respectively and holding some nice gaps. They should be a-okay for the rest of this race, no matter how quick Ferlinski tries to go. Ferlinski absolutely trying to go fast. A 34.9 compared to a 35.4, closing that gap to the front of the field. But yeah, Nico with his last lap being a 34.6, his best lap a 33.0. nearly a 32 in race conditions, and it's an absolute phenomenal pace from the Ferrari driver. 2 laps remain of this race as Nico crosses the line for his second to last time. So, one more time and it'll be white flag for all drivers. And we'll stay on board with Nico just for now, unless I see the gap close between Flynn and Jalowecki any more than it has. Cavalcanti and Andrew Taggart not to be counted out either. Quite close between those drivers. We're just keeping an eye on that right now. Nico still completely alone at the front of the grid. Having to deal with a little bit of lapped traffic side by side with lapped traffic, and that got a little bit sketchy. I don't think the Aston Martin expected so much of a dive from the Ferrari. That's the Audi giving way nice and clean, and that is, I do not remember which McLaren that is, but it looks like they may well give way to Nico here. They are required to give way, and if they do not give way, they will receive a penalty for blocking a faster driver. Penalties for blue flags are quite harsh. Drivers must give way at soonest opportunity, and right now it's not looking like the soonest opportunity as the McLaren nearly loses control and hits into Nico, but Nico just about avoids it and continues on his way. And that's going to be some threat relieved for Andrew Taggart, as that was Cavalcanti. So now, Andrew Taggart is going to have to think about where he wants to give way to the leader, where he needs to give way to the leader, as he's getting his first blue flag now down into the first corner. He will need to give way eventually, and he will need to give way rather promptly. I believe we'll see him give way on the exit of this corner almost certainly, as side by side, and that is a nice clean way to give way. Andrew Taggart losing no time giving way, so he should be able to hold on to P10 there. Nico in P1, Rufo P2, sorry, and Sarabin in P3, and it's a wonderful drive from the DSRT Ferrari driver. Flynn really close behind Jalowecki. We're going to watch on board with that just to make sure that we don't miss any overtakes. Heavy braking from the BMW, heavier braking from the Porsche onto the chicane for one of the final times this race. Go back on board with Nico because that gap has opened up between Flynn and Jalowecki. And Nico down the straightaway for the final time this race, followed by a whole lot of the midfield. So this is the deciding lap. Nico is going to cross the line in P1 almost certainly. I don't see any way that he can lose this position unless he goes a little bit wider. And now on to the final corner. He just needs to avoid any sort of penalty here, and he'll have won the first race of Season 11. It's going to be Nico across the line to win Misano in P1 with a huge lead ahead of P2. Rufo, 20 seconds behind in that Ford, will be coming through the final few corners right now. He'll need to do the same thing. No penalties, no track limits. And it's going to be a nice, smooth final corner from the Ford to take P2 for the first round of Misano. And it's going to be Sarabin bringing it home in P3 to round out our podium. A wonderful drive from the drivers today. Ferlinski doing a wonderful job keeping Uzebe behind, managing to hold on to P4 and crossing the line in P4 as his final position. Uzebe crossed the line in that RSR Ferrari, finishing P5 for his team. Kurlin just behind in P6. Ivanov managing to make his way, clawing up the grid into P7. A wonderful drive from a driver who has had many wonderful Misano drives before. Rivera moves himself up into P8, and he will cross the line for a wonderful result. Keppers in P9, also having a good race today. Andrew Taggart in P10 having a wonderful race, starting P19. Some of the most positions gained of any driver. Driver with the most position gained, though, is Jalowecki. 20 positions gained in this single race. Cavalcanti having lost 5, being the only driver in that top 15. Or no, the one of 2 drivers in the top 15 to have lost a position. So a wonderful, wonderful race we have today, or we had today. And I hope you will all join us for the next round of racing. Getting that looking prettier for the stream. I hope you'll all join us for the next round of racing. I hope you all had a wonderful time watching the stream. And thank you to everyone who participated in this race. I believe our next race, you will see us at Imola for our first wet race of the season. So make sure to check back, same place, same time. And with that being said, you all have a wonderful day.